Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, guys, you know I love to welcome our guests and take the time to honor them because I know they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive. First of all, their time. 24 hours has been given to each and every one of us. What we do our time will tell me a lot about you. As I got older, man, I learned to respect time. And as I learned to respect and honor time, things began to happen in my life. My relationships began to become more intense. I became more purposeful in my approach of how I spend it. A lot of things change. And so I invite you guys to become familiar with the preciousness of time. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful creator. It created the individual that is before us. And Dennis is here to spend both of these precious commodities with us. And we want to honor him and thank him for coming. And there's a couple of things that I tell people that the journey deposits in that individual. What are they? And we want access to all of it. Those are wisdom, insight, knowledge, all of those wonderful things that are sitting within Dennis. And we want to extract some of that so that you and I can become better human spirits while we're here on this planet Earth. Dennis, thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Well, Ken, thanks for having me. And what a joy to have another opportunity just to share with people how valuable they are, how important they are, and the potential that every single one of us has is far more than we can imagine.
Yeah, we are one of the most underestimated things on this planet when we look at each other and we see, and when we communicate, if you will, through hatred and vengeance and all of these different types of dark thoughts, we don't understand the appreciation of each other. So one of the questions that we ask here, one of the very first questions, Dennis, that I ask everyone that shows up, that presents, is how do you serve mankind? And again, I do that for my audience as well, to invite them to realize that this life is not just about themselves. It's also about the others. We have to reach out and help each other as well. So to learn who we are and to move through darkness and pain and accompany each other so that we can remind each other we are not alone on this planet, man. When whoever's going through anything today, before we start today, I want to let you guys know you are not alone. Dennis, how do you serve mankind?
It's a great question, Ken. And for me, it's just doing everything that I can to help people along their journey, help them to see how valuable and important they are, how talented and skilled they are, more than they can imagine, more than they know, and that they're unique, powerful people. One of my mentors says that each of us need all of us, and all of us need each of us. And it's just so true. And so, I just want them to understand that and then be able to do everything I can to equip them with the experiences that I've had and the mistakes that I've gone through so that they don't have to make their journey move a little bit faster and be a little bit more productive. So really, I serve man by helping them to become who they were designed to be and maximize their potential.
And that is awesome. I love it. Tell people to always find, and I always say this, Dennis, qualified mentors. I have to put that word in there, qualified mentors, to help you, to assist you, because a qualified mentor will be able to have you gain insights into your information or your conditions and usher you out of your situation much faster than you can do it on your own. So find those qualified mentors, guys, and you will know when your spirit, your intuition will address it. And I tell people, when that intuition addresses something, tells you something, listen to it and obey it. But one of the things that we do here, Dennis, is travel. I tell people I love jumping into this time machine via the memory and revisit some of those locations that we reside for a short period of time as an individual, as we're moving through to become, quote unquote, independent, or to become an adult, if you will. One of the very first spaces that we reside for a few years is called the family. We have mom and dad in the group. Some of us are lucky to have some siblings and other things. But within this family, we are going to become we're going to start getting data, information, and that information is going to affect our perception. Perception will come and affect our belief systems and all the different things. What was your family unit like?
It was very interesting. My dad was in the Navy. He was 19 years old. He met my mom at work. She worked in a bar at the time. And my mom was 5 years older, 24 years old, with 3 kids under 7. I was one of them.
Wow.
But, my dad just fell in love with her. And not only did he marry her, but then he adopted us.
Wow.
And, and I don't know how many adopted people are out there. It was very interesting for me because the way I look at it, God created me with his own specific blueprint and design to fulfill, my part in my generation. And so he gave me my paternal father in order to give me my DNA. But he gave me my adopted father to create in me the character that he wanted me to develop. So I'm very fortunate. I had a paternal father to give me my physical characteristics, but then I had my adopted father, who helped create my character. And the beauty about the adopted father, he chose me. He chose me, and so there's lots of parallels there, within our faith.
Yeah.
God chose us, and my father. And I tell you, you talk about mentors. He was really like my mentor. I mean, I never realized it until obviously decades later, but he was my example, and he was the most brilliant example of living life and loving people. So it was really great. And then, then him and my mom had one other child, so a younger sister that I have. I had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister. Grew up, life was great, and we were by no means rich. We were probably on more closer to the poor side than the rich side. But something, we never knew it because we just took life for what it was, and we just did everything we could with everything we had.
Yeah, one of the things that I've noticed, Dennis, we talked about before the onset of all the madness that took place. We were talking about Thailand and traveling. One of the things that I've noticed when in my travels is that poor people are more happy than rich people. It's amazing in a sense where I get a chance to see a laughter to a degree that is so powerful and free when you see an engaged couple. And again, young people laughing. And I've been around rich, I've been around poor, and it's amazing the energy. I don't know how to explain it, Dennis, but it's something different there as far as when it comes to like joy and laughter and happiness. It seems a little more genuine, even though there is less than, if you will, according to Western civilization or Western mindset. When we look into these people, or even in Western society, we see a lot of poor people that are also a lot more happier than rich. It might be having to do with all those responsibilities that we have. So here you are, man. You have a opportunity. I love your genesis already. It's such a powerful genesis of your story. As you are with your father, the one that adopted you and is teaching you character, what was your relationship to others outside of your family when you were in high school and those type places? Because your character, if you will, begins to be tested, proven, all of those different things as you are stepping out from the shelter of home, if you will.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it was just the idea of, I understood everybody to be equal. Everybody was created in the image of God. And so no matter what that outside physical appearance might be, we all have that one common thing that we all possess. And, and you mentioned this idea of happiness. And I just want to comment on that because this was something that my dad really infused into me. And see, so many people think that Happiness comes from position, from possessions or
Yep.
power or these kind of things. But happiness may be determined by circumstances, but joy,
Yeah.
that inner joy that you were talking about, see, that's intrinsic, not extrinsic. Look how many rich, famous, powerful, influential people commit suicide. They've got it all. They got the position, they got the possession, they got the fame, they got the fortune, and yet they haven't realized what it is. Blaise Pascal put it very, very clearly. He said, there's a void in the heart of every man that
Yeah.
can only be filled by God through Jesus Christ.
Only
And
way.
and when he fills that void, man, I'm telling you, everything, it doesn't make any difference where you live or what your situation is, because there's an intrinsic thing that just overflows.
Yeah.
And so that's really, and that was huge. And so my dad taught me that. In fact, you probably love this, because I just saw everybody listening. I really did. And my mom says, I said, hey, Mom, we got to go pick up Georgie. And she says, okay, great. And so we go by to Georgie's house, and I said, hey, Mom, I said, can you unlock the back door to the car? And she says, well, where's Georgie? And I said, he's there. She says, what? She says, just open the door. And so Georgie opens the door and pops in. Georgie's about 3 feet tall. He's a midget. And I didn't tell my mom, and she turns around, whoa. And then there was another time, it was so cool. I think we're going to pick up this friend of mine. We're going to the Sea Scouts. It was kind of like a Boy Scouts for the ocean, right? And so we go by, and Larry jumps in the back seat. And I said, hey, Mom, I said, this is Larry. And she turns around. I just didn't tell her that he was a mongoloid with a huge head and a glass eye. So, Dennis, you have got to prepare me for these.
That is funny. I love that. It's awesome though, the gifts, Dennis, that we receive from our parents, and that's one of the reasons why I visit our Genesis. I tell people, and how powerful of an influence our parents are in our development as to how we perceive others, how we perceive the world, even how we perceive ourselves. We collect some data within that unit that will walk with us for the rest of our entire life. One of the things that I like to ask Dennis is, when you're, for a family and a young individual moving forward in some family, the discussion as we get older, again, we're tracking our heading to our adulthood to come to where you are today as a servant. When was college time? What was your mindset towards college? Which field of study did you pick, and why did you pick that field of study?
Well, it was very interesting. First of all, my perception of college was, if you're going to make it in life, you got to go to college. I just, I kind of thought that was the direction you needed at that particular time in history. That was the put. College education, you have a much better chance. The odds were better to do well.
Yeah.
And we did well. I mean, we had opportunities to do things, and my my mom and dad, they set up priorities to spend time with family and such. So, when I was going into college, I was passed on probation. Okay, I did not, I did not do well in school, but I got into college. But really, and I chose the course of business, and the only reason I chose that course because I really wasn't that sure what I wanted to do. My commitment was I wanted to make a career in the military, and I thought that was going to be the greatest thing that I could do to serve my country and to be able to maybe travel and see the world, because that's one thing I really wanted to do. I wanted to be able to make a difference for people, but I wanted to travel. And, because I'd seen National Geographic magazines, I said, oh my gosh, this would be so incredible. But unfortunately, and it's interesting how circumstances redirect our life.
Yeah.
I'm of the thinking, and I learned a lot of this from my dad, that nothing happens to me. Everything happens for me. And so my job is to, when things happen that I don't like or that I don't understand, I just have to ask myself, what is this teaching me? Where is this directing me? How is this for me? See, and I may not understand that for years later. And when my brother died, then he died as a victim in the Vietnam War. And, of course, my mom, she said, Dennis, she says, listen, she says, you can go in the Corps and they can kill you or I'll kill you, you know?
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, Mom, I got it. I'm not going. Don't worry, Mom, I'm not going. I wouldn't do that to you. So, when I had spent the previous 3 to 4 years envisioning myself being in the military and traveling the world, that now all disappeared. I
Yeah.
didn't understand it at the time. Didn't make sense to me at the time. But had that not happened, I would not be where I am today. I would not have been launched into the career that I was able to get into that was actually the perfect fit, for my drive, my desires, my personality, my talent, skills, and abilities. It was like they were all designed for the career that I launched into. And so, so that was really, really important for me, and it worked out just perfect. And so, so that's a motivating factor, and that's always stayed with me to understand, that philosophy, that concept.
I love that concept because if we look at it that way, then we will not adopt that mindset of victimhood.
Right.
And I
There's
think
no
most
place.
people, yeah, there's no place for that mindset within that lifestyle or that pattern of thinking. We
Yep.
need to, because of that, the way how people think, Dennis, of everyone is a victim. I think that kind of teaching is needed to show each other. No, I always tell people, understand your position and your condition and where you're at. There is always a purpose in your pain. There's always a purpose within your situation. You just have to
Absolutely.
become mindful to ask questions. What am I here for? What is it I need to learn? What is it I need to extract from here? And I told people, when you approach something that way, the sting of it dissipates, where it now becomes a classroom versus something that is dreadful. When you look at it more of a classroom where you're trying to be attentive to it, to extract data from it, it becomes shorter in the sense that you feel that you're in there because you're aware of something that you need to extract and you get it. And I tell people, try to be in your situation. Try not to be in a situation longer than a second that you have to be in that situation. Just get your data, get out and move on.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I think, that's that part of it, where, listen, God has created us with great potential.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to use all our talents, skills, gifts, and abilities to help others in order to reach that potential. And
Yeah.
sometimes when we're moving slower than we should or could, and or not moving in the right direction, God has what he calls a forced growth program. Forced growth program is called circumstances. And so really in the line exactly what you're saying here. The problem with so many people when circumstances happen that they don't like or uncomfortable, then, we ask why. What we
Yeah.
need to do is we need to learn to ask what instead of
Mm-hmm.
not why is this happening, but what do you want? What am I to learn from this? What is this? What direction is this pointing me in? What is it that I need to learn? What is it that characteristic do I need to develop? And that's where the value comes in. And so then we grow. And think about it. I mean, how do you ever grow at anything unless you encounter a problem?
Yeah.
How do you get better at sports unless you overcome a problem? How do you become better at playing an instrument unless you overcome a problem? Every piece of growth in our life has to deal with overcoming a problem that we have up to that point in time not been able to solve. But once we can solve that, once we can overcome the problem, we now become more valuable.
Mm-hmm.
We become more valuable for ourselves in our abilities, but we also now become better equipped to help other people, solve that same problem where we can now save them the pain that we went through. Sometimes we go through pain to overcome a particular problem so that we can prevent somebody else from overcoming that same pain. And then it's like you say, kind of skip that long process. We can help save their time. One of my mentors said there's 2 ways to grow, PE and OPE. And that's PE is personal experience or OPE is other people's experience.
Yeah.
And I tell you, it's a lot less painful if you can grow from other people's experience. So,
Yeah, if most people would listen, but they have to be at that space where they're ready to receive your teaching, because Jesus said,
exactly.
"Those who have ears, let them hear." So someone is telling me that somebody wasn't ready. Here you are, Dennis. You're, as you say, we're heading towards adulthood, independence, and your choice of direction because of the situation within your family with your brother changed your life as far as trajectory of where you're going. Where did you headed up, or where did you ended up as you change your trajectory from what you wanted to do so that you can make mom a little happy, and where did you ended up?
Well, as it turned out, after I graduated from college, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I didn't want to just get a job, because I figured a job is just over broke. A
Yeah,
job is just, being a slave to somebody else's dreams and desires. And I thought, wait a minute, I want to fulfill my own dreams and
yeah,
desires. And so I ended up getting a job driving a school bus so that I would have time off during the middle of the day, take kids to school in the morning, pick them up in the afternoon. But it gave me time during the day where I could spend time looking for a career more than a job. And, where so many people, and especially in today's world, and I understand the culture is different today, where it's more culturally acceptable to find a position, stay there 4 or 5 years, learn what you need to know, go to another position and, develop skills, and you go to another, and you constantly move yourself up the proverbial ladder.
yeah, yeah,
But I didn't want that. I wanted to find something that I would love to do and then do it for the rest of my life. And so, part of my philosophy is make reversible decisions quickly, make irreversible decisions slowly, or
yeah,
permanent decisions slowly. And so I figure if I'm going to have a permanent career, then I really need to take some time and thought and energy to put into it, so that once I make that decision, it's done.
yeah,
And when I was 30, I had gotten myself connected and involved in the nutrition industry and with a startup company. And it was just amazing, because here was this opportunity to be able to make a difference for people. And the
yeah,
beauty about this company is they focus not just on the physical attributes, nutritional supplementation, but also exercise. So it was what we consumed, it was what we did. So it was our food consumption, to make our body healthy, but also our mental consumption to create our mental health. And so it worked physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I thought, man, this is the ideal. It covers the full scope of man, body, soul, and
mm-hmm.
spirit. And so when I realized that, I said, man, this is it. And so I've been involved with this company now for 44 years. And
Wow.
I still love what I do. People ask, when are you going to retire? And I say, well, you retire to do what you love. I've been doing it for 44 years, so I guess I'm already there.
That is a interesting approach, Dennis. I've
Yeah,
never,
I just a thought here, because, when we look at this aspect of our lives, people understand, the mental part. People understand, that idea of climbing the corporate ladder. And I always warn people, I said, be careful you don't climb the corporate ladder and find the ladder leaning against the wrong wall. You want to have satisfaction when you get to the top of the ladder. And so, so there needs to be a balance. And so we have body, soul, and spirit, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is it should be spirit, soul, and body.
Yep, yep,
And here's the thing. And, for me, and I told you from the very beginning, my goal is to help people maximize their potential. So let's suppose we're brilliant. Suppose we make Einstein look like an idiot. Our minds are sharp. We know things. We have wisdom. We have perspective. We have a strong will, and our soul, our mind, will, and emotions, right? So we max that out at 100%. Suppose we're a physical specimen. We're the healthiest you could ever imagine being.
yeah,
100%. I max my health out at 100%. My body's the 100% fitness, right? So I've got 100% on my soul, my mind, will, and emotions. I have 100% on my body, my physical health and performance. But if I don't include the spiritual side of my life, think about it. I'm running at a maximum 66% potential, even if this is 100%, and even if this is 100%. But let me ask you something. Are we 100% on our mental, mind, will, and emotions? Are we 100% on our body? No.
No.
So, I mean, at best, we're probably running at 50% if we don't have the spiritual. So we need to make sure that all of them's go. The spirit was designed to control the soul, the mind, will, and emotions. That's why we have a conscience. That's why everybody automatically knows that there's a thing called right and wrong. No matter what, that it's inherent. We know there's right and wrong. It's built into us to discern that, right? And so we understand those things. So the spirit should control the mind, will, and emotions. And then the body is really just the place we live. The mind makes decisions. The will carries them out. The emotions is the result of doing the right thing. And the body's just the place that we live. I mean, we've got it all backwards today. We think if it feels good, do it. We're looking at the body, then the soul, and we forget the spirit. And we wonder why everything's all messed up.
Yeah.
You got to keep it balanced right.
Because they're not teaching people who they are within the systems that we have. Even in the church, Dennis, we don't do a good job in teaching the people who they are as an individual, spirit, soul, and body, and how it relates to each other. And you did a teaching on that the conscience resides within the spirit. The fellowship resides within the spirit, because that's how we communicate with God. That's how we have our conduit, if you will, with God, and resides within that soul of us. We have our will, we have the emotions and things that Dennis had talked about, and each one of those play a part within us. And I just did a teaching on a talk to someone about this, because we were talking about being in faith. And I was trying to explain to them what that means. It means that you have to be in alignment, your spirit, soul, and body. And when you get in alignment, and that's when you are in full, your spirit is in control, your soul understands, he got the revelation that the word of God is right, and he gets it. He goes, oh yeah, I get it. And those two come into alignment, your body is going to just absolutely agree, because it has no choice. And when you get to that place, when your spirit, soul, and body is in unison, the Bible calls that faith. And when you speak, that person right there in unison is speaking power. Your words become creative and enforced with power that is called faith. And I tell them that law of faith supersedes every other law that is on this planet, because it was the law of faith that created this planet. Because it was the law of faith that Jesus was walking water, Peter was walking water with the law of faith, the woman with the issue of blood overrode her disease through the law of faith. So you got to understand who you are, Dennis, and they haven't taught us. And so I am so glad that you're in a profession that is teaching people of the wholeness of who they are. And you took your time and you found it. And once you find it, of course, this is it, that's where you're at. I've never heard that reproach in my entire life, Dennis, because they always force us to get out of college and find a job right away. No one ever tells it.
The thing is they think that, the system is set up that we're human doings.
Yeah.
You do this, you do this, you do this, then you get that. But we're not human doings. We're human beings. So we got to start out, first of all, who I am. In other words, the process is it's be, then do, then have, then help. In other words, we have to know who we are. Who we are determines what we do.
Yeah.
Who we do determines what we have. And then what we have determines who we help. That's that process that we go through. And you said something very clear. Even in the church, you're absolutely correct. They don't really teach it. The overall picture of what we have on planet Earth, that, and in other words, if you take the picture from the beginning to the end, it began with creation. Who am I? Where did I come from? Am I just some protoplasmic blob that, developed itself into a highly intelligent form? No, but I'm a creation of God. very interesting. God said, "Let there be," when he created the heavens and the earth. Let there be, let there be. He spoke everything into existence except for man. He didn't speak man into existence. He formed and developed him.
Formed him. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so, and he had a blueprint. He said he has the blueprint before the heavens and the earth. Before the heavens and the earth. That blueprint for who we are. In other words, what's that tell us? Each and every one of us is distinctly unique, apart from every other person ever in existence. I mean, think about it. We all have different fingerprints, don't we? All 8 billion of us.
Billion of us.
All 8 billion.
Voice, everything is different.
Guess what else? We also have very distinct voice prints. 8 billion voice prints.
Yeah.
A lot of people, if you talk to iridologists, they're really in tune with this. But we also have 8 billion eye prints.
Face recognition.
Here's one that many people don't know. We have 8 billion different heartbeats. Our heartbeats are unique. Now think about this. What does nature tell us? We can learn so much from nature. Okay. My fingerprints are unique. I have different feelings. My voice print is unique. I express things differently. My eye prints are unique. I see things differently. My heartbeat is different, unique. I feel things. I have different passions. This is why all of us need each of us and each of us need all of us, because there's nobody like us. And so when so many people are so confused in the world, because a lot of people think, well, everybody should be like me, right? Everybody should be like me. And if they're not, they will be when they grow up.
Yeah.
When people have, that's a very immature attitude. And when we have that attitude, that's why we get confused when people do things that aren't like us. So what's the matter with them? Well, they're not who you are. The next level is we go from everybody's like me to, okay, well, maybe everybody isn't like me. That's a level of maturity when you begin to realize, so they're different than me. They have something else to contribute. I contribute what I have and know and experience. They contribute what they have, know and experience, right? And then we realize, come to think of it, nobody's like me. It's the next level. And the most mature level is the fact that and you just said it, and it made me think of this, is that it's okay to be me.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to be me, who's going to be me?
Who's going to be me? There's no other me like you. And that's one of the things I try to explain that to people, is that I put it in this way, Dennis. I say, you are an endangered species.
That's
period.
right.
You are one of a kind.
That's right.
All those
we're the
things
last in the series.
Yeah, you're the last one in the series as well. And I tell people that because you're so special, because a lot of people say I'm not special. And I said, no. Let me tell you how special you are. That there are industries within the world based on the fact that you're so special. You have those that face recognition. The police department could not solve a crime, basically, unless they see the crime committed, without the fact that that individual is different. Why? So the whole department, the police department, survives and exists because of the fact that you're different, because that's how they trace them. Fingerprints. We are getting better as far as technology and voice and all these different face and all these different things. But you are so unique that there are industries within the entire world built on the fact that you are unique. That is special. So don't tell me that you are not, and don't allow that. And I tell people, the scripture said that, and I tell people we are being programmed. And the first programmer, if you will, and I tell them the most important programmer that is out there, the Bible calls sin. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 15, I think it is, he says, there's a couple of things that are within the heart of mankind. One of those things he was talking about, he told the teachers at the time, and again, the teachers in the church, they focus on the wrong thing. And here Jesus addressed that. He says, you're teaching about the basic stuff. He said, you're not teaching about the weightier things, the stuff that comes out of a man. It comes out of a man, evil thoughts, murder. But I keep telling people the program that created evil thoughts was sin. Because until then, Adam was connected to God. He named the animals. God didn't have a problem with it. God didn't say, no, Don't name him that. So he was connected to God. And what sin did was introduce a new program, disobedience. Same entered through disobedience. And that new program, sin, it corrupted the man and gave him evil thoughts. And those evil thoughts are being produced today. And so now we have to learn, as your industry is focusing, on how to restructure one's mind. When you restructure one's mind, you're restructuring one's thoughts that he or she
Renewing of the mind.
renewing. Yes. And so
Transform yourself by the renewing of our mind. And the thing is here's the beauty about this. We get to choose. In other words, we get, and now listen, there's a lot of things we don't get to choose, but we can choose not to see, not to hear, not to listen, as well as we can choose to see, to hear, to listen. In other words, we get to choose what we read, what we see, what we hear, and what we experience. So we can program. And if you don't like what the program is, change the software.
Change it.
And we have the ability to do that. And it's very interesting because you're absolutely right. The sin is a lie. And the problem is Satan is very crafty. And what he does is he takes a lie and he wraps it in a thin layer of truth. And that's how he did. I mean, when he came to Adam and Eve, he said, you can be like God. Well, you know what they forgot? They were already
They were like him.
It was a lie. We can be like I am God. He created me in his image.
And so likeness. Yeah.
Exactly. And and it's very interesting because when you look at the overall picture, there's 4 parts to God's story. That's it. Just 4 simple parts. There's the creation, there's the fall, there's redemption, and there's restoration.
Yeah.
And the church spends most of its time on the fall and redemption. It's just like what you were saying. Hey, we need to grow on to maturity. You're in the basic stuff. We're stuck on the fall and redemption. But what happened after the redemption? When we were redeemed, we're redeemed for what? We're redeemed to have the kingdom of heaven here on earth. He said, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So part of his will is to create the characteristics and the attitudes in heaven here on earth. And so what we've forgotten is the restoration. What have we been restored to? We've been restored to the condition before the fall. We just believe it.
Yeah.
Satan is still out there pounding all the stuff from the world, saying, no, this is true, this is true. And we have to say, no, that's not true. I've been restored. Ephesians, the book of Ephesians.
Beautiful book.
The first 3 chapters of Ephesians tells everything we possess and everything that we are. We are forgiven. We are sealed. We are loved. He has everything that we are and possesses in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Chapter 4, 5, and 6. Chapter 4 begins with what? He says, anytime you see a therefore, find out what it's there for.
What is there for? Yeah.
He says, therefore what? In other words, because of who you are and what you possess, then he says, starting in chapter 4, walk, stand. 5 times he says, walk. In other words, if this is who you are, act like it. And you said it in the very beginning. If we don't know who we are, how can we act like it? How can we live with someone if we don't know who we are? We have to know who we are. We have to know whose we are. And when we do, everything changes. And so part of my purpose, a part of my contribution to life is to help people, number one, get redeemed. Okay. Get rid of the sin, the guilt, the shame, get rid of all that stuff that just weighs us down and let them know that we can be free. The truth will set us free. And when we see that truth and we accept that truth and we get redeemed by the blood, from Christ being on the cross, that debt paid, now I've been restored. Now I can live according to who I was created to be. Who knows how better to live than the person who created me? I look at a laptop. Think about this. If you had a laptop back in the 1800s and somebody sees a laptop sitting on a table that got transported somehow, they're going to look at that. Are they going to say, what do I do with this? No. What's the question they ask? That's not what do I do with it. What is this? What's this for? If we don't know what we're for, we don't know what to do with it. So we got to know that first.
Yeah, I love it, man. This is, again, that is the assignment that we all have, is to find out who we are. And as I said, I believe it's one of the great sins of the church. They haven't taught the people who they are. And it
Yeah,
comes with
exactly.
the understanding of the fact that I'm a soul, a spirit, soul, and I have a body. And how do we relate to each one? How each one of those parts of me relates to me, and how it affects everything else in my life, and how I approach life, approach others, all of those different things, and how I approach God. I mean, you have to have a full understanding of who you are and how you approach God, because it tells you how to approach God, and your spirit is the one that is connected, that fellowship piece. Those who worship me must worship me in spirit and truth. So you have to understand who you are in order to be able to come, as Dennis said, effective and understanding your purpose on this planet. So Dennis, here you are. You found your job in 30 years. You found your, not job, as you said, the job is basically just to be above broke, but you found your calling in this particular industry with the nutrition and your approach. I love the approach is wellness. The
Yes.
entire being is dealing with spirit, soul, and body. When you found that, as you said, and in your 30s, and you recognize what you had, how did it begin to change and form you in how you began to look at life and look at those outside of life when this opportunity became a part of your life?
Well, what it really did is it allowed me to focus. If you don't really understand who you are or what you're here for, whatever comes along, you say, well, is this it? When is it this it? And so we go from here to here, and we can move in all kinds of different directions. So what it allowed me to do is say, okay, if this is my calling, if this is where I'm supposed to be, now I can focus on this one thing. So much easier to focus on one thing. Success always, focus always precedes success in whatever we
Yeah.
do. And so it really just allowed me to focus in on, now using the talent, skills, gifts, and abilities that I have to serve other people, to maximize their potential. And that's the beauty of it. And that's, those are things that I learned along the way. Fortunately, through a number of different mentors. I had 5 key mentors in my life, and each mentor was in a different area. I had a different
Yeah.
perspective. I had a spiritual mentor, I had a business mentor, I had a personal mentor, so those things were extremely valuable. And by focusing on those things, I was able to maximize my potential. From a school bus driver, I have developed a team in 50 plus countries around the world. And it's amazing. My personal team's over 250,000 people. And it just did that step at a time, learning principle after principle after principle. Because there's certain things about learning to live a purpose-filled, and principle-guided life.
Yeah.
We're not designed to, live for our pleasure, but purpose. And so, that was very, very helpful for me. So I learned certain principles, that are extremely effective. And in fact, one of my mentors, he's an executive mentor. He asked me one day a couple of years ago, he said, Dennis, what are the principles that you have utilized to create this massive team around the world globally?
Yeah.
And I said, well, there are a lot of, and he said, make me a list. And I said, okay. And so I went down and I wrote down all these principles. I had over 50 some odd different principles. And then I kind of condensed them down to about 45 principles. And I said, these are the things that made the greatest impact and that I've used throughout my career and literally around the world. They apply to every country, every culture, every economy, every faith, everything. And he said, okay, says Dennis, he said, I think you have a book there. And I
Yeah.
thought, oh, wow. I flunked English twice. But he put it in my mind. I said, well, I guess that's something that's beyond me that I'm going to be able to do now that I never thought I could do. And so that's where I wrote my first book. And it's just an accumulation of all of these principles that, and what that is it's a way for me to be able to carry on a legacy, to leave a legacy. Because it's interesting. If we look at our life, decade per decade, right? Our first decade is security. Okay. When you're, born to 10 years old, that's your security. You want to have secure, you want to be fed, you need all those things. But when we get into our teens, we've gotten so okay, well, I'm pretty secure now. But now what I need to know is I need to know a little bit more of who I am. I need that. There's that self-awareness, and this is why as teenagers, we're all over the place trying to figure out who we are, what to wear, and how do I be, and all this kind of stuff, right? But then when we get through those teen years and we get out of school and we get into our 20s, now the 20s is, oh my gosh, I'm no longer at home. I no longer have that security. How am I going to survive? So the decade of the 20s is survival. And at the end of the 20s, when I realized I can survive, I've made it. And you get into the 30s, say, okay, now how do I succeed? So this is the decade of success. We create all that I have and use everything that I can to be successful. But at the end of the 30s, I can be successful. And as I start the 40s, I say, well, I'm successful, but so what? What difference does it make? What if I climb the wrong ladder and it's leaning against the wrong wall? What do I do? So what difference does it make? That's the 40s. Once we understand the why, the purpose of having this success, what I do with this success, now I can begin developing my stride in my 50s. The 50s is the decade of our stride. And I get that stride going for the 60s, the decade of the 60s. Ken, did you know, you said you're 62. Did you know the 60s, statistically is the most successful, progressive decade in a person's life? I mean, it really is true. And that's what happened with me, and it gave me such great hope because I first heard this idea, when I was in my 60s. The 70s is the decade of legacy, the decade, of succession.
Yeah.
And that's what drove me to writing my book. I thought, well, I've succeeded beyond measure, beyond what I could ever have imagined in my life, right? But the thing is what for? And in other words, I need to pass on all the knowledge and experience and things that I've learned to that next generation, to the next group of people. And so that's what the book did. And especially, oddly enough, especially with my family. See, my family, they watched what I did. They saw me go from poor to rich. They saw me going from barely getting by to traveling the world, 50 plus countries, right? They saw everything happen, right? But so they saw what happened, but they don't know how it happened. Isn't it interesting that my family, they knew what, but they didn't know how? Now I put the how in a book so that now they understand how I did it, how I made it happen. What are the principles? How did I live my life? What are the principles that I used that created that success? Because principles work whether I understand them or not. And so that's why the principles are so valuable. Strategies change. Concepts are constant. See, and they work in every country, every culture, every faith, every religion, every philosophy. They work everything. That's the beauty of them. See, and that's this idea of just creating a life and moving along life and understanding who I am, where I am in my life, and what my focus needs to be during that period of time. And so I'm in my 75th year. I have zero health issues. I have zero medications. I mean, I'm just as healthy could be. I mean, it's mind boggling. I'm so grateful for it. I paid attention, right? I did the right things. And my time will come. But until that time, I'm going to be as healthy and do as much as I can for as many as I can until that time gets here.
Guys that are listening to this podcast, we're going to provide all the links for you guys to get to Dennis to look at the business side of it. I'm sure Dennis will have access to that information, so you guys will look at that. But also, I want to encourage you guys, and you know how I am about books, man. Being an author myself, I know that a book will rescue me, and I know that a book still rescues me. The Bible is one book as well that I utilize every day of my life. And so within books and within those pages and those covers lies wisdom and insights that will change your life. And buy them as presents, and as gifts, and give them out as presents. We have to learn how to begin to give meaningful gifts. Books are very powerful that you can begin to give meaningful gifts. I understand about material stuff as far as clothes and all these type of stuff. Yeah, and ties. get yourself a meaningful gift. And Dennis's books and so forth, we're going to provide all the links, because how is within there is the how and how he did it, how he achieved it. And you that are looking at your life, you need data. You need some additional information, how to. And we will provide all of his links so that you can get to Dennis, because it is important, man. Give it to friends, give it to families, buy it for yourself, and change your trajectory of your family and your life forever. Dennis, I want to ask you this, because there's a question that I sometimes, when I feel led to ask him, I'll ask an individual, because I know God is always moving us forward, if you will, based on the plans, as he says in Jeremiah, the plans that he has for us, you know. So what is it you feel that God is moving you to? You said you're in your 70s, because I know sometimes there's an undercurrent of uneasiness that sits beyond us, that is trying to wake us up to, I need to stretch you a little more. What is it you're seeing? And that usually based, Dennis, on the need that is out there, the collective need of individuals and stuff like that. That's why we're stretching. God wants us to reach deeper into the individuals. What is it you feel that God is putting on your heart, if you will, in the next coming years, next year and beyond?
Well, I tell you, I think one of the things that people need to understand, and we've kind of alluded to it throughout the call, because it's such a foundational principle, a foundational understanding upon which everything else is based, is I need to know, who I am. We have a huge identity crisis globally, and people don't understand really who they are, whose they are, where they come from. And so it's real important for them, because when they understand who they are, then they can develop that. How can you develop who you are until you know who you are? And so I want people to understand that. I want people to understand the potential that they have to make a difference in their generation. You made an interesting statement. When God created Adam named all the animals. Now think about this. That's how creative. No names, and he named the thousands and thousands of animals and cats and dogs and creatures and all the beasts, all the trees, all the shrubs. How many kinds of flowers and plants and trees and bushes? How many are there? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. And he just came up with names.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty creative. We are actually very creative, and we have so much potential. And I want people to be able to understand who they really are, and be able to fall in love with themselves, because we love our neighbor how? As we love ourselves. And when you understand who you are, and you can love yourself, and you can love what God has blessed you with, then you can use that to reach out. I talked about position, possession, and power and influence, that kind of thing. Listen, I have the position. I'm in the top 1%. I have the possessions. I bought the $1 million home. I've had the cars. I've had all that stuff. I have great power to be able to influence hundreds of thousands of people. But the point, that's not the goal.
Yeah.
Those are just tools. Those are tools. The goal isn't to have the possession, position, and power. The goal is to what I do with it. In other words, we begin in survival. We need to then become servants, to serve take what I have to help other people maximize their potential. And when I serve people, Zig Ziglar says, he who serves them, he says, if you help enough people get what they want, you get everything that you want.
Everything you want, yeah.
So the idea is, when you become a servant like that, success isn't automatic. You don't have to try to be successful. You'll be successful when you're serving other people and helping them to maximize their potential. But the goal, then you become successful, but the goal isn't success. The goal is significance. See, in other words, it's not what I do, it's what others do as a result of what I do. That's what I want to see. I want to see them take all my knowledge and experience that I can pour out to them, pour into them, so that they can maximize their potential and continue the process. You see, think about it. If you're an all-star player in sports, whatever sport it might be, right? and you're all American, and then you go into the pros and you're the all American, all pro, and then you're MVP. How do you feel? Great. You should feel great. You put in the discipline, you put in the effort, and you feel like $1 million. This is unbelievable, right? That feels good. But now let me ask you something. Now you have a son, and you teach him all that you know about your skill in your sport, or your musician, or your talent, or being an engineer, or whatever it might be, right? And you teach him all those things, and then he becomes great at sport, and then he becomes the All-American, and then he becomes a pro, and then he goes All-Pro, and then he reaches the MVP, right? Let me ask you something, Ken. Just you think about it. Which feels better, your MVP or your son's MVP, the one that you trained and poured into? Which one feels better?
Yeah, my son always, because
Nature teaches this. Listen, the sun doesn't give heat for itself.
yeah,
Trees don't grow fruit for themselves.
yeah.
Flowers don't create a fragrance for themselves. It's for others. See, that's nature. And therein lies the secret of success. It's taking what we have and creating and providing more for others. And when we serve others, life gets so good.
There's nothing I can add to that. Dennis, thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment. I absolutely appreciate our conversation, man.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Bless you, man. Thanks so much for having me.
It is an honor. It's an honor.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.